Number 8. Melissa Young. In the summer of 2013, transgender woman Melissa Young locked her neighbor, 47-year-old Alan Williamson, in her apartment in Edinburgh, Scotland. She threatened him with a knife, leaving the man so terrified that he jumped from her first-floor balcony to escape. Roughly 6 months after the incident, on Christmas Day, Young offered him gifts consisting of sneakers and a copy of the Sun newspaper's 2014 calendar. Williamson refused them, to which Young reacted by frantically stabbing him nearly 30 times. When the police arrived at her apartment, they found her with bloody hands and Williamson dead behind her front door. Following her arrest, Young claimed to have seen a bright light and heard voices before she flipped and knifed her neighbor to death. The woman, who had a tattoo of the Virgin Mary on one arm and a tattoo of Lucifer on the other, claimed that the archangel Saint Michael had taken control of her body. She maintained to have been used as an instrument of God to punish the unclean demon. Young also claimed that she wouldn't have stabbed Williamson had he accepted her gifts. She denied murder but admitted to killing him on the grounds of abnormality of mind. It was determined that she suffered from a severe personality disorder, but the Crown rejected that it had played a part in Williamson's murder. She was jailed for life with a minimum of 20 years served. In August of 2014, as Young launched an appeal against the murder conviction, her former boss revealed that he'd had to fire her roughly a decade before the incident and offered further insight into her troubled mind. The man had run a private sauna under the name Cher and revealed he'd had to terminate Young as she had stolen clients by offering her own escort services. He noted that at 6 feet 3 inches tall, her towering presence intimidated the other workers with whom she'd often clash. Cher described her as being like a tiger who could lash out at any moment. After she was fired, Young's erratic behavior continued until her arrest for murder. She kept working as an escort, struggled with addiction, became a serial shoplifter, and developed a fixation for the Catholic Church, frantically writing letters to the Pope and religious leaders in Scotland. Number 7. Herbert Jones. A female teenager called the police in Hanover, Massachusetts, following an incident at the Hanover Mall at the beginning of the Christmas season in 2013. The 18-year-old, who chose not to reveal her identity, had been dressed as an elf while working alongside Herbert Jones, who was wearing a Santa Claus costume. They'd been employed by Cherry Hill Photos, with the teenager taking pictures of children as they sat with 62-year-old Jones, whose fit for Father Christmas was aided by his natural bushy white beard. At some point during the day, however, Jones reportedly pinched the teenager's backside, telling her, "I wish you were a few years older and I was younger." It prompted her to alert the authorities. As he was taken into custody from the dressing room, Jones denied having intentionally touched the teen, claiming she'd actually been the one who'd bumped into him. As reported by a Wicked Local, their manager had told the police that the elf-costumed worker had been in a bad mood after being questioned over some missing money earlier in the day, possibly supporting Jones's version of events. He subsequently pleaded not guilty to indecent assault and battery and was released on a $1,000 bail. A judge ordered him to stay away from the mall where he'd previously been employed and also banned him from playing Santa Claus for the rest of the season. Number 6. Madison Hansen. On Christmas Day 2021, law enforcement in Seward County, Nebraska, attempted to stop a vehicle that had no license plates while speeding in an area where the limit was 75 miles per hour. Instead of pulling over, 20-year-old Madison Hansen continued westbound, accelerating to nearly 120 miles per hour before exiting the highway. The high-speed chase ended when the young Lincoln resident brought her vehicle to a stop near Agnew Road. Her blood alcohol was tested by law enforcement and found to have been over the limit, resulting in a charge of DUI, in addition to a multitude of other charges. They included felony operating a motor vehicle to avoid arrest, willful reckless driving, and operating while license suspended. Number 5. Santa Claus protest incident. A man dressed as Santa Claus was arrested by British police at around Christmas in 2021 while he was trying to handcuff himself to the UK Parliament in London. The incident occurred as thousands had gathered in the capital to protest the recent COVID-19 measures, particularly the introduction of vaccination passports for large venues. A video of the arrest went viral in the aftermath, and it showed roughly a dozen police officers as they struggled to subdue the unnamed man. As they were doing so, a voice was heard berating them off camera, shouting, "You're gonna be on the wrong side of history, you lot, you traitors!" The Santa Claus protester's beard and hat were removed in the struggle, and he was eventually placed in the back of a police van. It wasn't clear if he was charged with anything, but while some of the online reactions were sympathetic to his cause, most users had tongue-in-cheek comments regarding the arrest. One claimed that Christmas was cancelled, while others jokingly asked if they'd still be getting their presents. Number 4. Holly Ayliff. On December the 24th of 2021, Holly Ayliff walked into the Journeys store at the Prescott Gateway Mall in Arizona and asked employees to set aside several pairs of shoes for her. The woman claimed that she had to wait for her husband to come and pay for the items. Less than an hour later, she returned to the store with a pistol in hand. She held the employees at gunpoint, first demanding cash from the register and then ordering them to place the money and shoes in the trunk of her car. After Ayliff had driven off, staff called 911 and gave responding officers a description of her vehicle. The police subsequently located it in the downtown area. The woman admitted her involvement in the incident and was taken into custody. A handgun was found in the vehicle, while law enforcement also recovered what she'd stolen, consisting of over $3,700 in cash and $1,500 in shoes. Ayliff was booked into Yavapai County Jail on charges of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and armed robbery. Number 3. Patty Michelle White. When Florida woman Michelle O'Dowd failed to show up for work at around Christmas time in 2011, her twin brother, Phil Axt, went to check on her. The man found that her home in Jacksonville's Southside neighborhood had been ransacked. He then saw a foot sticking out of a pile of Christmas presents meant for the woman's nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. "I grabbed her ankle and it was cold," Axt would later recall. 67-year-old O'Dowd had been fatally beaten and strangled before the killer had piled gifts on top of her body and covered her bloodied face with a towel. A few days after the gruesome discovery, the police tracked down and arrested 37-year-old Patty Michelle White in South Carolina. She was a family friend and the former girlfriend of O'Dowd's nephew. The older woman had opened up her home to White a few months prior after she'd fallen on hard times. To help her with money, she and Axt used to pay her to clean houses, babysit, or do various other jobs. O'Dowd had even trusted White with the PIN numbers for her debit and credit cards so that she could do grocery shopping for both of them. In the murder's aftermath, White was captured by surveillance cameras using one of the cards to withdraw $1,000 at 2 ATMs in Florida. O'Dowd's family members recognized her from the footage. Investigators believe that after living in South Carolina for several months, White had returned to Jacksonville with the intention of robbing O'Dowd. Something then went wrong inside the home that resulted in the latter being killed. In further comments on the incident, the elderly woman's brother stated, "How can you be so sick to bury the victim with children's gifts?" White confessed after she was arrested and in 2013 pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She received a prison sentence of 45 years. Number 2. Henrietta Bush. In 2019, an Ohio resident was arrested for beating a woman in the Avondale neighborhood of Cincinnati. The connection, if any, between 32-year-old Henrietta Bush and the victim, Rhonda Lewis, wasn't reported. The brutal attack was launched on Christmas Day in the immediate aftermath of Lewis wishing the other woman a Merry Christmas. Bush repeatedly punched her in the head, inflicting what was reported as visible physical harm. She was booked into the Hamilton County Jail on a $10,000 bond and scheduled to be arraigned in early January of the following year. She had a lengthy criminal record which included, among others, assault, theft, menacing, and narcotics possession. Number 1. Downtown Posse. In December of 1992, the town of Dayton, Ohio was in the midst of Christmas preparations when it came under attack by a violent gang of young adults. The group consisted of locals who called themselves the Downtown Posse, under the reported leadership of 19-year-old Marvelous Keene. Joining him were his girlfriend, teenager Laura Taylor, 19-year-old DeMarcus Maurice Smith, and his girlfriend, Heather Nicole Matthews, aged 20. All four of them were estranged from their families when they started spending time together, and their influence on each other would produce the deadliest killing spree in the town's history. On Christmas Eve, Taylor and Matthews convinced General Motors worker Joseph Wilkerson that they'd have relations with him at his home. He was ambushed and executed when they reached the property. The gang spent the following 3 days in his home while his dead body lay in the bedroom. Their next victim was 18-year-old Danita Goulet, whom they robbed at a phone booth in town. Even though the mother of one had given them her shoes, jacket, and book bag, they still shot her dead. On Christmas Day, the body of 19-year-old Richard Maddox was found in his car. He'd been fatally shot in the head by the gang, and the police later found that he'd once dated Taylor. That same day, the posse targeted Jeffrey Wright outside a home on Yuma Place. They shot him 4 times, but he ultimately survived. On December the 26th, the 4 spree killers gunned down 38-year-old mother Sarah Abraham, who was working at the family-run short-stop mini-mart. Abraham succumbed to her injuries 5 days later. A customer was shot, but later recovered, while another worker avoided injury by pretending to be dead. Dayton homicide detectives didn't realize the crimes were connected at first and struggled with identifying suspects. It was only after a carjacking carried out by the posse in which the victim was able to escape that they caught a break. Police stopped the gang as they were driving around in the stolen vehicle, but had no idea at the time they were the spree killers. The 4 cooperated with the arresting officer. It was later revealed that Taylor had told Keene to shoot him, but he refused. A vehicle they'd abandoned nearby led the police to Wilkerson's home, where they found his rotting body tied to the bed. With the posse behind bars, Taylor was visited by a local minister and confessed that the gang had claimed 2 more victims. The bodies of teenagers Wendy Cottrell and Marvin Washington were found in a city-owned gravel pit. The gang had killed them for fear that they'd report their activity to the police. In the aftermath, Keene was sentenced to death, and after 17 years of appeals, he was executed in 2009. His 3 accomplices were given life sentences. Thanks for watching. Would you rather celebrate Christmas alone or at a party with all of your exes? Let us know in the comments section below.